Oh. I mean, I know you can't dismiss a position because of the people who advocate for them, but good grief, Shane Killian just makes it too easy. I was directed to this Warski live stream with Shane Killian, That Guy T, Last, Alternative Hypothesis, and Francois, and I know this has been like a week old at this point, so I'm really late to the party on this one, but oh my gosh. Shane Killian was essentially torn apart on so many levels. There was even one point where he was like, well, actually the non-aggression principle is like, and then alternative hypothesis was, oh, just shut up, dude. But seriously, I've been not kind of cautious about responding to Shane in any specific way, because any response I had would be pretty much the same he would give me to my original video in response to him. And yes, Matt Forney, Anarchist, Layman. I agree. But the response would be... his response would be the same. He would take what I have, chop it into pieces, and then misrepresent me in my positions. I mean, it's amazing how disingenuous... I mean, I've said this before in my first live stream, but this is kind of embarrassing about how ridiculous it is. But it's just, everything that in that video that he responded to me is exactly what he did to me is exactly what he thought I was accusing him of doing. There's this one section, I think it's just kind of hilarious when he says that I'm not interested in advancing the conversation and interested in moving the goalposts on definitions, when really it's interesting that he refers to me as a statist and a fuddy. I mean, you calling me Shane Killian, you calling me a statist is like me calling you a hypocrite. It's true, it's just your definition is not practical to the conversation, while mine is. And it was kind of interesting to watch the anarcho-capitalist position defended by Shane in this presentation, because, you know, of course, our alternative hypothesis and Last are not, they're more interested in the practical applications of political influences, while Shane was only arguing the principle. And over he was trying to argue the principle, and that's when I realized that holding to the principle of anarcho-capitalism isn't good enough. And it's also something I also realized in my interactions with other anarchists or anarcho-capitalists, is that they're arguing from the position that the same way the communists argue. They're arguing from the position of futuristic hindsight. They're saying, well, they're arguing, well, if we're in charge of every single aspect of society, we'll run it properly this way. And that's what's really disappointing, and really what's going to discourage me from ever being an anarchist. I mean, I guess in the end of the day, people point out that I'm an anarchist in my daily practices, and I'm an anarchist in principle, as a matter of principle. The problem is, I just don't see that principle applying in the real world. I mean, communism will always fail because it is wrong, but anarchism will always fail because it will never be applied. And... oh yes, it is a 6 live stream, so I gotta fix that. Thank you very much for that note. But it's just, I wish I had, and it's really sad about Shane is that he's such a prideful individual. He just cannot admit when he's wrong about anything. Like right before he made his response to me, he had this short video called a quickie about normalcy bias, or basically a normalcy bias, for those who don't know, is the mindset that discourages people from making a will or buying insurance because they just assume that their circumstances are going to change and won't affect them. And that's pretty good in and of itself, but for some reason he decided to insert traditional marriage and says, for all the fuss about traditional marriage, what people refer to as traditional marriage has only been around for the last century or so. And I responded to him because that marriage is not really a good form of normalcy bias, because the people who harp about it are rather concerned that normalizing non-traditional marriages will undermine the institution of marriage itself. Traditional marriages, aka monogamy, has only been the way it's worked for the last century, I ask? I'm pretty sure that monogamy has been idealized far longer than that, to which he responded, but they don't mean monogamy, do they? They mean consensual monogamous marriages, which has only really been the last century or so. Before then, there are arranged marriages, shotgun weddings, prohibitions on interracial marriage, all sorts of things. To which I responded, when people refer to traditional marriage, they're referring to the ideal of one man, one woman in holy matrimony. Arranged marriages, shotgun weddings, and even prohibitions on interracial marriage are all variations of preserving the ideal, because to not keep the ideal would mean a disaster for society. Your notion of normalcy bias, which is about not panicking because you assume that you will not be affected in regards to traditional marriage, is primarily held more by politically moderate people who are indifferent towards non-traditional marriages on the grounds that they don't affect anyone. So really there is more a normalcy bias in moderates. To which he responded, "Wow, really? How..." I apologize if that's inappropriate, but it's too irresistible, honestly. And he says, traditional marriage was, like I said, marriages uniting power families and making land deals. Just 200 years ago, the tradition was that to have a woman you marry and had kids for that reason, and a mistress on the side for love and intimacy. There is in no effing D way that conservatives are talking about. But yeah, the conversation very persistent, that to which I say, how is it a form of normalcy bias? And it just isn't. The guy is just so... Whenever he makes a statement, he cannot backtrack on it. And that was actually true in the live stream, I noticed. He was just so determined to just say over and over, just insist on positions. And even when he was caught dead wrong in the positions, like in the positions of immigration and immigration policy, he was making the point that immigrants are actually not a net negative to the society, which is ironic because because when he made that video, 2 months after he made that video, the International Studies of Immigration, the National Immigration Studies panel, I forget the exact name, but Immigration Studies panel made this booklet pointing out that not only are immigrants taking out more welfare than native citizens, they're actually staying on it. So the idea that they're actually a net benefit to the economy is actually not true. But I highly recommend anyone check out the Warcy livestream. I was brought to it late, but it's in the description below if you want to check it out. It's truly a magnificent work of what happens when the principle meets the practicality. And fundamentally, Shane is more than willing to hold to the principle and defend on the principle, but the problem is if your principles make you a doormat to your opposition or political opposition, it's not a very good principle to hold to. I mean, you might say, well, wait a minute, ArtisticLayman, you believe when someone hits you, slaps you, turn the other cheek. Yeah, but turning the other cheek does not mean that you allow them to walk all over you and make a joke out of you. It means that you're able to turn the other cheek rather than throw a punch at someone. At least that's the interpretation I have of it, because the obvious response is when you get smacked in the cheek is to automatically smack them back. Because it's just not very. It's also just not very practical in any sense, and I don't know. Maybe Shane will. I mean, obviously Shane won't respond to a video this long, and also the only reason I'm doing this video at this hour at this moment is because I won't be available for the next 3 days, and so I had to do a stream before I get too busy. But it's really, it was kind of hilarious and so cathartic to watch Shane over and over. And oh yes, the most cathartic thing on that video was in Shane, he defended the idea of open borders, and his first defense was the plaque of the Statue of Liberty. I kid you not. He actually, his first automatic argument for defending open borders was, well, give me your poor, your hungry, willing to be free, not the best and the brightest people. Yeah. No to open borders, so I can never be. That's exactly why I can never be a purist libertarian, or principled libertarian, I should say, because it just doesn't make sense. And also, on another topic on his first response to me, he accused me of starting off with my conclusion, working backwards from that, when really that's what he was doing about his. I mean, Shane, you never would have come to the non-aggression principle as a matter of first principles. You started off with your conclusion and worked backwards from that. And before you say that I have no evidence for that, keep in mind, I have just as much evidence for that as you have evidence for making the accusation that I didn't watch your videos. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say on that. This is going to be a relatively short video, so while I'm here, I have to see if there's any comments at this on a very early hour. Let's see. I love how this is no Calvinism, but God is sovereign over nature, but stars and oceans, and realizes how wide the stretch to say that He gives us a choice and accept or reject. Well, that's kind of obvious, but never mind that. Also, doesn't Calvinism make God the author of sin? It sounds like spiritual determinism to me. Well, it doesn't really make God the author of sin, because we are still, even though God has decided the end from the beginning, we are still moral agents. And to say that we are not moral agents is like saying God is, like J.K.R. Rowling is responsible for all the murders that Voldemort commits in the Harry Potter series. I mean, you can kind of see that Voldemort had no choice, but really he's still held accountable for what he does, even though J.K.R. Rowling is basically making, quote-unquote, making him do it. There's one interpretation of that biblical story which says that you turn the other cheek in order to mock the slapper. That might be it. Or you could put by offering them, like when Jesus says, rather than insulting him, give him water, so put hot coals on his shoulders. That'd be great. Let's see. Read Jesus by Anarchist by Ron Rothford. Okay, I'll check it out, but I don't think it's going to change my position. But I will. Anarchist by James Redford. I gotta check out that book again. The Statue of Liberty poem was added some years later. It was written by a communist Echo. Yes, so it was. I like to go to the classical meaning of the word anarchist because it simply means without rulers, unless you are metaphorically speaking as God, in which you're ruler. There should be no issue with that. Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that. But the problem is governments don't exist for like the people who are inclined toward anarchism, because anarchism and libertarianism tends to be people who have generally more higher IQs or generally more of self-reliant people. It's more for people who are on the top end of the political arena. But the thing is, governments don't exist for people at the top; they exist for most of the people in the middle. And yeah, it's kind of like it's depressing when, like, in the book in Aaron Clary's book, the Curse of the High IQ, the point is that governments do by and large exist for the people in the middle, which are basically the people who kind of make the welfare system necessary. And maybe I'll work out another political arrangement where where there can be a political system where there is no need for government, but I don't see that happening. I mean, even the founding fathers were some of the great elites of their time, and even they needed a structure of government. I mean, technically, if you're going to hold it that way, technically every democracy is anarchistic by its very nature, but I don't think that's what people mean when they say anarchism. I think you need to read the first Calvinism comment again. You misread it. Oh, let's see. What did I misread? Read the stretch. But God is sovereign over nature and stars, and the ocean can't rationalize why the stretch. I know this stretch isn't about Calvinism, but God is sovereign over nature, but stars and the oceans can't rationalize, so why is it the stretch to say that he gives us a choice to accept him or reject him? But that's the thing, does God give us a choice? I mean, in the fallen state, we choose what we want, but in our fallen state, what we naturally want is sin, and naturally want is a rejection of God. And so we can never make the choice for Christ until God changes our hearts and enables us to choose that. And so to say that God gives us the choice, I don't see that's not a very biblical position. I don't think it's a very consistent one. I mean, you can't go. It also has a lot of implications in evangelism. You can't go around telling people God offers you the choice. Choose now who you will. I mean, that's technically in the context of Israel and the people of Israel, but you can't approach people that way. If you're just going to think that everyone has equal playing field to access to God's salvation, then it kind of makes God subservient to humans. It seems that, yeah, God made salvation possible, but it only saves you when you give him permission to do so. And I take issue with that. Let's see. Anarchist Christians. Sounds cool. I'm sure it's cool, I just don't see it happening. Sadly, there is much soy between Christian men to be able to pull that off. Well, I think there's just so much soy in the Pareto principle that it's impossible to pull that off. But anyway. Well, that's pretty much all the comments, and I've only been gone for 13 minutes, and so this wasn't going to be a very long video anyway. But Shane Killian, on the off chance that you are responding to this video, maybe we can actually have a one-on-one. I'd like to invite you to a one-on-one Google Hangout or some sort of stream where we can actually discuss our differences in a very honest manner, where I won't be interacting with your avatar, but I'll be interacting with you. I don't expect that happening anytime soon, but we'll see. If we truly are made in the image of God, then we have the knowledge of good and evil, so we can make the choice. But we knew the knowledge of good and evil after we fell, and so we're always going to fall, and we're always going to choose the fallen path because we don't of our natural state we don't want God. But I'm carrying on right now. Cash me outside. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this very short little stream. I know it's not really what I'm normally doing, but I guess I'm running out, but I'm out of time anyway. I gotta get ready for something very important. So thank you all for watching, and so enjoy the credits. Don't forget to like or dislike this video, add it to your favorites, or share it if you really liked it. Leave a comment below. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, Gab, AskFM, and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to see future videos. Until then, take care and Godspeed.